Hej, siemano wam wszystkim ludzie, z tej strony Arturo, witam was na swoim kanale i kontynuujemy Agatha Christie Morderstwo w Orient Ekspresie. Powróciliśmy do pociągu i kontynuujemy nasze śledztwo. Może w pierwszej kolejności porozmawiamy z konduktorem.
I found this button from your tunic in the American lady's compartment.
I have lost no button, mademoiselle. There must be some mistake.
Then perhaps it was dropped by the man she said was in her room.
There was no one there. The lady must have imagined it.
I need to ask you some questions about Monsieur Ratchet's death.
But of course, mademoiselle Marceau. I will do anything I can to help.
Kiedy zostało odkryte ciało?
When was the body discovered?
The valet of Monsieur Rachet, he tapped several times at the door this morning. There was no answer. Then, half an hour ago, Lucien, the waiter, came. He wanted to know if Monsieur was taking déjeuner. It was 11 o'clock, you comprehend.
Continue.
I opened the door for him with my pass key. But there is a chain, too, and that is fastened. There is no answer, and it is very still in there, and so cold. The window open, I borrow the engineer's hammer, and break the chain and go in. Monsieur Rachet was... oh, it was terrible. The chain was fastened. It must have been suicide?
I'm sorry, Michelle. A person does not commit suicide by stabbing himself 12 times.
No, I suppose not.
Czy ktoś wzywał cię zeszłej nocy po naszej rozmowie?
Did anyone call for you last night after we spoke?
Yes, I made up the bed of the young American gentleman, Mr. Rachet's secretary.
At what time?
It must have been about a half hour later.
1:45.
About that, yes. The English colonel from number 15 was with him. The colonel went back to his own compartment as I prepared the American gentleman's bed.
Czy widział pan, by ktoś chodził w nocy po naszej rozmowie?
Did you see anyone moving about last night after we spoke?
The English colonel returned to his compartment. No one after that.
Czy opuszczał pan ostatniej nocy wagon po wyjeździe z Belgradu?
Did you leave the car at any time last night after Belgrade?
Well, I did go back to talk to Matteo, the attendant in the Athens-Paris car.
When was that?
Not long after one.
How long were you gone?
A few minutes only. One of my bells rang. You remember, it was the American lady. She had rung several times. I hope the investigation will be concluded successfully and soon.
No i ja myślę, że to był ten przełomowy moment, kiedy konduktor poszedł do wagonu Ateny-Paryż. Ktoś w tym czasie się wkradł i zabił pana Ratcheta. O! Kolejny paszport. Stąd wzięliśmy już sobie rolkę filmu.
Nothing else to...
A tutaj mamy tylko buty. No dobra. Myślę, że warto jeszcze raz sobie wszystkie przedziały przejrzeć. Być może coś się pozmieniało od naszych ostatnich wizyt.
Colonel Arbuthnot, I do not believe we've been properly introduced.
I expect the formalities must be winked at in a case like this, mademoiselle. The attendant told me you are acting on the Frog detective's behalf.
I am the Frog, monsieur. Hercule Poirot is Belgian.
Apologies, no offense meant. Your accent's a bit of mid-channel, difficult to pick up.
Czy mogę pana prosić o paszport?
May I have your passport, please?
Of course.
Colonel Francis Gordon Arbuthnot, the Muse, Cheltenham, Royal Northumberland Fusiliers, currently stationed in India.
Yes, on leave.
But you're not traveling on the P&O boat? Why not?
I stopped in Baghdad with the AOC, who happens to be a good friend of mine.
Gdzie spotkał pan Mademoiselle Debenham?
Where did you meet Mademoiselle Debenham?
Miss Debenham? What, in Baghdad, if you must know.
And your opinion of her?
You can take it from me, she's all right. A puka sahib.
Czy może mi pan powiedzieć, co pan robił wczorajszej nocy?
Can you give me an account of your movements last night?
Yes, I think I can. After dinner, I had a drink in the salon car with young McQueen, the dead man's secretary. Surprisingly knowledgeable about world affairs for an American, even if he had got hold of some tomfool ideas about India. We adjourned to his compartment, let me see, at around 2100. That's 9 p.m. You saw us in the Belgrade station courtyard. We stepped out for a bit of fresh air, but with the weather turning foul, that wasn't on.
Co panowie, pan i Monsieur McQueen palą?
What do you and Monsieur McQueen smoke?
McQueen doesn't, now that I think of it. A pipe's my weapon of choice.
Co było po odjeździe z Belgradu?
What happened after Belgrade?
Around 2200, that's 10 p.m. Cratchit's valet came to fetch him for his employer. He went off for a while.
A co pan robił, gdy Monsieur McQueen pana opuścił?
And what did you do after Monsieur McQueen left you?
Well, I went back to the salon car for a nightcap, didn't I? I was heading to my compartment when I ran into McQueen. Went off back to his room again to continue the natter. I put him straight on India. Learned a bit about the American stock market. Bloody fool's game, if you ask me. Oh, pardon that is to say, my language.
Do not concern yourself.
There, you see. Now I can hear the accent. It comes and goes.
O której skończyliście rozmawiać o polityce?
What time did your discussion of world affairs end?
The conversation was so engrossing, by the time I looked at my watch, it was 1:45. The Queen called the attendant to make up his bed. I came back here.
Did anyone pass Monsieur McQueen's room while you were talking?
A good many people, I should think. I wasn't paying attention. The attendant did at one point, and I think I caught a glimpse of you wandering about.
Let us say during the last hour of your conversation.
Really, I can't.
Colonel, you have the soldier's observation for detail.
Hang on. There was a woman, I think.
Była młoda czy raczej stara?
Was this woman young or old?
Didn't see her, wasn't looking that way. Just a rustle in a scent.
Mademoiselle Debenham?
No, I'd recognize. That is to say, it wasn't. No, it was very strong. Fruit or something.
Może pan określić, kiedy ta kobieta przychodziła, o czym rozmawialiście?
Can you pinpoint the time the woman passed? What were you discussing?
Let's see, I was detailing the other washout. Stalin's 5-year plan was turning out. It must have been within the last half hour. More definite than that, I can't say.
Czy był pan kiedyś w Ameryce?
Have you ever been in America?
Never. Don't want to go.
Czy znał pan pułkownika Armstronga?
Did you ever know a Colonel Armstrong?
Armstrong. I've known 2 or 3 Armstrongs. Selby Armstrong. He was killed on the Somme.
I mean the Colonel Armstrong who married an American woman and whose only child was kidnapped and murdered.
Ah, yes. I remember reading about that. Shocking affair. Never actually came across the fellow, but his name came up in the officers' mess, of course. Toby Armstrong. Nice fellow. Everybody liked him. Distinguished career, got the VC, Victoria Cross.
Człowiek, którego zamordowano zeszłej nocy, był odpowiedzialny za śmierć dziecka pułkownika Armstronga.
The man who was killed last night was the man responsible for the murder of Colonel Armstrong's child.
Then in my opinion, the swine got what he deserved, though I would have preferred to see him properly hanged, or electrocuted, or whatever it is they do over there. Trial by 12 good men and true. Sound system.
Czy jakiś fakt z ubiegłej nocy wydaje się panu podejrzany?
Anything you can recall from last night that strikes you as suspicious?
There was one odd thing.
Yes?
As I got back to my compartment, I noticed that the door of the one beyond mine, number 16, it wasn't quite closed. The chap inside peered out in a rather furtive sort of way, then quickly pulled the door. Probably nothing in it, but you know what it is. Early hours of the morning, everything very still. The thing had a sinister look, like a detective story.
Thank you, Colonel Arbuthnot.
Not at all. Now, if you don't mind, I think I'll pop along to the salon car.
Don't let me keep you.
You mean to say you intend to stay in my compartment?
Yes.
and search through my belongings.
I'm sorry, but I really must.
But it just isn't. That's bloody irregular. Pardon my French.
Oj, troszeczkę się zdenerwował. No ale siła wyższa.
I've already searched it thoroughly.
Wzięliśmy za to paszport. Tutaj są tylko buciki. No i nie widzę nic innego, co byśmy mogli zabrać. Wybaczcie też za moją chrypkę i mój głos, ale chyba przewiała mnie klimatyzacja.
I won't find anything else in there.
Kolejny paszport. I coś jeszcze. Księżna Natalia Dragomirow.
The bracelet is worthless, mademoiselle. It is copper only. I bought it outside the train station in Istanbul. For my arthritis. Take it if you like.
I'm very sorry, Your Highness. I realize how this must look, but I'm only doing the job assigned me. I promise I'll return it to you, if I can.
Ah, then I expect you would like to interrogate me. I believe that is the correct term.
If I may,
But of course, I am suspect just as anyone in the Calais coach must be. I am ready for the third degree.
Wzięłam pani paszport, wasza wysokość.
I have borrowed your passport, Your Highness.
I noticed that as well.
Natalia Dragomirov, 17 Avenue Kleber, Paris. You are traveling home from Istanbul, madame?
Yes, I have been staying at the Austrian embassy. My maid is with me, as you saw in the marketplace.
Czy może mi pani pokrótce opowiedzieć, co pani robiła wczoraj wieczorem?
Could you give me a brief account of your movements last evening?
Nothing could be simpler. After dinner, Schmidt, my maid, read to me. We were interrupted by the train stopping to avoid the avalanche. Then she read aloud to me some more, till quite late.
Can you give me an idea of the time?
If I were to guess, I would say it was 1:30.
Jak długo pracuje u pani ta służąca?
Has your maid been with you long?
15 years.
Do you consider her trustworthy?
Absolutely. Her people come from an estate of my late husband's in Germany.
Proszę mi wybaczyć osobiste pytanie, madame. Jaki jest kolor pani szlafroka?
Forgive the personal nature of this question, madame, but what is the color of your dressing gown?
My dressing gown? It is of blue satin.
Przypuszczam, że była pani w Ameryce, madame.
You have been in America, I presume, madame?
Many times.
Czy znała pani może kogoś z rodziny Armstrongów?
Were you acquainted with a family by the name of Armstrong?
You speak of friends of mine, mademoiselle. Sonia Armstrong was my goddaughter. I was on terms of friendship with her mother, Linda Arden, one of the greatest tragic actresses in the world. As Lady Macbeth, as Nora in A Doll's House, there was no one to touch her. I was not only an admirer of her art, I was a personal friend.
Czy Linda Arden umarła?
Is Linda Arden dead?
No, she is alive. It is a sort of life. She lives in complete retirement. Her health is very delicate. She must lie on a sofa most of the time.
Pani Armstrong miała siostrę, nieprawdaż?
Mrs. Armstrong had a sister, did she not?
Yes, much younger than Mrs. Armstrong.
And she is alive?
Certainly.
Where is she?
I must ask the reason of these questions. What have they to do with the murder on this train?
Zamordowany człowiek był sprawcą porwania i zabójstwa dziecka pani Armstrong.
The dead man was responsible for the kidnapping and death of Mrs. Armstrong's child.
Ah. In my view, then, this murder is an entirely admirable occurrence. You will pardon my slightly biased point of view.
It is most natural, madame.
Gdzie przebywa młodsza córka Lindy Arden, siostra pani Armstrong?
Where is the younger daughter of Linda Arden, the sister of Mrs. Armstrong?
I've lost touch with the younger generation. I believe she married an Englishman some years ago, but at the moment I cannot recollect the name. Mademoiselle, you will forgive me, but the one you assist, he who guides the investigation, no one has told me his name.
He is Hercule Poirot, madam.
Poirot. Of course. I thought his face was somehow familiar to me. Poirot on this train. It is destiny.
Tutaj nic nie ma. Okej.
I've already searched it thoroughly.
No dobra, przesłuchaliśmy hrabinę. W 16 już byliśmy. Ktoś tam uchylił drzwi i wyglądał. Ale my już tam ten przedział sprawdzaliśmy.
Nothing to find here. Nothing else to see in there.
Okej.
Nothing to find here.
Tak troszeczkę się nieładnie zachowujemy, przeglądając bagaże współpasażerów. No ale cóż, jak prowadzimy śledztwo, to musimy, no siła wyższa.
I've already searched it thoroughly.
Well, it's about time, I must say. Here I am with information that will solve your mystery for you, and it's hours before you show up. You aren't helping that famous detective, or whatever he is, aren't you?
Yes, madam, I have that honor.
I would think you'd be more on your toes. In America, the police would have arrested the culprit by now on my evidence.
Then let us proceed without delay.
Czy mogę panią prosić o paszport?
May I have your passport, please?
My passport? What do you want my passport for? I'm the witness, not the murderer. What is wrong with you people in this country?
This is Yugoslavia, madam. I am French.
That's what I said.
Your passport. Thank you. You are Caroline Martha Hubbard of Great Neck, is it? Long Island?
That's what it says, doesn't it?
Jedzie pani do Paryża, by spotkać się z córką?
You are traveling to Paris to meet your daughter?
Yes, that I'm supposed to sail for home the day after tomorrow. Though, how can I do that stuck here? I'll never know.
Czy słyszała pani jakieś dźwięki z przedziału Monsieur Ratcheta?
Did you hear any sounds coming from Monsieur Ratchet's room?
Well, earlier I'd asked that Swedish lady, Mrs. Olson, if she had anything for a headache. She's a nurse, you know.
Yes, I know.
Poor soul. Looking for my room, she'd opened the door to Mr. Ratchet's compartment by mistake. He laughed and said something not very nice, I think. But I couldn't make it out. She said, "Oh, I make a mistake. I ashamed to make a mistake," in that bizarre accent of hers. And he laughed again and said something about her being too old. The idea! My late husband, Mr. Hubbard, and I enjoyed conjugal relations right up to the very end.
Anything else?
After that, I heard snoring. Quite loud, like an airplane engine revving up.
Jakiego koloru jest pani szlafrok?
What color is your dressing gown?
What an odd question. I have two dressing gowns, if you must know. A pink flannel that's kind of cozy on board ship, and a purple silk number that my late husband, Mr. Hubbard, gave me. But what in creation do you want to know that for?
Someone in a scarlet kimono was seen coming out of either your compartment or Monsieur Ratchet's. It is very difficult to tell sometimes which is which when all the doors are closed.
Well, it wasn't mine.
Then it must have been Monsieur Ratchet's.
That wouldn't surprise me any. I thought I heard a voice in there.
Czy głos, który pani słyszała z przedziału Monsieur Ratcheta, należał do kobiety?
Was it a woman you heard in Monsieur Ratchet's room?
Yes, I think it was.
Did you hear what was said?
Well, I didn't put a glass up to the connecting door and eavesdrop, for heaven's sakes. What sort of a person do you think I am?
Kiedy słyszała pani ten głos?
When was it you heard this voice?
I have no idea. Sometime after the snoring died.
Was it before or after the train stopped?
After the man in my room that you have so far failed to ask me about. I woke up. heard the voice, and that was that.
Tell me about the man you thought was in your room.
At last! No offense intended, sweetie, but you foreigners do just about everything backwards.
The man?
Well, I was in bed. I woke up. All in the dark it was. And I knew, I tell you, that there was a man in there with me.
In your bed?
In my what? How dare you? No, in my compartment. I was just so scared I couldn't scream. I just lay there and thought, mercy, I'm going to be killed by some foreigner. These nasty trains. I just lay there with my eyes closed and thought of America. Somehow I got my wits about me and I felt about with my hand and I felt.
Yes?
The bell button. I pressed it and pressed, but no one came. I thought, mercy, what if they'd murdered every single soul on the train? I went on pressing the bell, and at last, footsteps in the corridor. I dragged on my dressing gown, the pink one. I screamed, come in, and switched on the lights, and would you believe it? There wasn't a soul there.
Michel otworzył drzwi i wszedł. Michel przeszukał pani przedział. Miłego dnia, monsieur.
Michel opened your door and entered.
Yes, although considering the time it took him to arrive, he must have come by dog sled. He seemed to imagine I dreamt the whole thing. I tell you here and now, I'm not one to imagine things.
Michel przeszukał pani przedział.
Michel searched your compartment?
Yes, even under the chair. Although he said there wasn't room for a man to squeeze himself under there. I asked him to check the connecting door.
Były zablokowane?
Was it bolted?
No, but I knew it had been because I asked the Swedish lady to check it when she brought me the headache powder.
Czy przed przybyciem Michela ktoś otwierał lub zamykał któreś drzwi?
Before Michel arrived, did either door open and close?
Sweetie, my eyes were squeezed shut tighter than a banker's fist. I didn't see. And with the bell making all that racket, the intruder could have dynamited a hole in the wall, and I wouldn't have heard it.
Do you remember the Armstrong kidnapping?
I'll say I do. How that wretch that did it escaped scot-free, I'll never understand. I'd have liked to get my hands on him.
You could have, madam, when the connecting door was unbolted.
You mean Ratchet was the man?
Yes, his real name was Cassetti.
Well, imagine that. Wait till I tell my daughter.
Czy znała się pani z Armstrongami?
Were you acquainted with the Armstrong family?
Well, they were from New York, too. But no, they moved in a very exclusive circle. I've always heard that Mrs. Armstrong was a perfectly lovely woman and that her husband worshipped her. It was all incredibly sad.
I would like to dust the doorknob of the connecting door for fingerprints.
My, aren't you the little improviser? Be my guest, sweetie. Search the whole place if you'd like. I need a drink.
Mrs. Hubbard, wait. You dropped this.
That's not mine.
I thought as it has the initial H on it.
I've got mine right here. See? It's marked CMH, and it's a sensible thing, not that flimsy, expensive Parisian cambric. What good is a hanky you can't sneeze into?
Coś jej wypadło. Chusteczka.
Nothing else.
Ale nigdzie jej nie widać. No dobra. Przesłuchaliśmy kolejną osobę. To jest pokój pana Ratcheta. Tutaj raczej nic nie znajdziemy. Przedział 9. Poirot. W sumie to możemy z nim porozmawiać.
Monsieur Poirot.
His memory seems to overemphasize meat dishes. The butcher eats sliced into the more fundamental than usual today. Worse than avalanches and murder, beyond the why does it not surprise me? What more classic movement last night?
And that is everything I have discovered so far.
We progress, mademoiselle. Now, let us see what we can learn.
Myślę, że zebrałem wszystkie paszporty. Myślę, że mam wszystkie odciski palców. Madame Hubbard słyszała kobietę w przedziale Monsieur Ratcheta. Pułkownik Arbanot widział konduktora i mówi, że czuł zapach kobiecych perfum. Na pewno nie mamy jeszcze wszystkich paszportów i wszystkich odcisków palców. W sumie to nie mamy żadnych.
Madame Hubbard heard a woman in Monsieur Ratchet's room.
Wait, and about the time you heard the noise and saw the woman in the scarlet kimono. So, does a woman speak to Monsieur Ratchet, murder him, drop a handkerchief with the letter H, then scurry off down the corridor in a scarlet kimono? Or does Madame Hubbard hallucinate a woman's voice as well as the man in her room?
Pułkownik Arbuthnot widział konduktora i mówi, że czuł zapach kobiecych perfum.
Colonel Arbuthnot saw the attendant and thinks he caught the scent of a woman.
The scent of a woman. You have found a romantic streak I would not have suspected one so stolid to possess.
Pułkownik Arbuthnot widział, jak Monsieur Hardman obserwował z przedziału korytarz.
Colonel Arbuthnot saw Monsieur Hardman watching the corridor from his room.
Monsieur Hardman's door opens to the right, so unfortunately he could see little of the corridor, but he would have seen if anyone entered the Calais coach from the Athens-Paris coach.
Księżna Dragomirow była matką chrzestną Soni Armstrong.
Princess Dragomirov was Sonia Armstrong's godmother.
Oui, it is coincidence, or something more?
Au revoir, Monsieur Poirot.
Au revoir, Monsieur Poirot.
Nie mamy na pewno odcisków palców i nie mamy wszystkich paszportów. Olson i... to jest nasz przedział. Ale możemy do niego zajrzeć.
Hello, miss. There is more snow coming, I think.
Greta, you know Monsieur Poirot has asked me to help him investigate the murder.
Yeah, I have heard this. It is satisfactory with you?
Very. Will you help me?
I will try.
Mogę panią prosić o paszport?
May I have your passport, please?
It is here.
Greta Sigrid Olsen, 49, of Stockholm.
Of course, I am a missionary now, nurse at the school in Gemlik, and not much in Sweden.
Dała pani wczoraj w nocy pani Hubbard proszek od bólu głowy.
You gave Mrs. Hubbard a headache powder last night.
Yeah, poor lady with the pain in the head.
That was around 10:40, I believe.
I am not sure.
Czy opuszczała pani ten przedział po udzieleniu pomocy Monsieur Poirotowi?
Did you leave this compartment again after helping Monsieur Poirot?
His ankle is not so very injured, you know. I looked at it again this morning. I think he is not as brave as some of my little children.
After Monsieur Poirot.
I woke several times, of course, but it is because you were peeking out and leaving the compartment, not I.
After that?
When you finally settled down. No, I was very tired from all the activity. I slept. If I had gone out, would you not have noticed?
I'm not sure. You were here in the lower berth.
I slept until the morning. I slept soundly enough that you might have gone out again. I do not know about that, but I myself was sleeping.
Pani ubranie jest brązowe.
Your dressing gown is brown, is it not?
Yeah, you have seen it for yourself. Very comfortable, of Jäger wool.
Czy widziała pani kogoś w korytarzu, gdy niosła pani lekarstwo pani Hubbard?
Did you see anyone in the corridor when you took Mrs. Hubbard the medicine?
Not in the corridor, no.
Somewhere else?
I opened the door to the dead man's compartment by mistake. Mr. Ratchet, I was much ashamed.
O czym rozmawialiście z panią Hubbard?
What did you and Mrs. Hubbard talk about?
The pain in her head. It started at the back and sweep itself forward over her eyes and...
Anything else?
She asked me if the door between her compartment and Mr. Ratchet's is locked. I check it for her.
And?
It is locked.
Czy widziała go pani?
Did you actually see him?
Yeah, in his bed he was, reading a book.
Czy coś do pani mówił?
Did he say anything to you?
He laughed. He invited me. I do not care to repeat what he said. It inflamed my cheeks. I left at once, naturally, and went into Mrs. Hubbard.
That means you were the last person to see Monsieur Ratchet alive.
I am suspected of all the people aboard the train. I am suspected.
Była pani kiedyś w Ameryce?
Have you ever been in America?
No. Almost I go once. I was to accompany an invalid lady, but it was cancelled. I much regret it. They are very generous, the Americans. They give much money to schools and hospitals, and they are very practical.
Pamięta pani sprawę porwania Armstrongów?
Do you remember hearing of the Armstrong kidnapping case?
No. What was that?
A little girl was kidnapped and murdered. Her mother and an unborn child died in childbirth. A member of the staff committed suicide. Monsieur Ratchet was the man behind the kidnapping.
That there are in the world such evil men. It tries one's faith. The poor mother. My heart aches for her.
Thank you, Mademoiselle Olsen.
I to by było na tyle, jeżeli chodzi o rozmowę z Madame Olson. Raczej nie obwiniałbym ją o morderstwo Ratcheta. Mary Hermiona Debenham.
I won't find anything else in there.
Yes, Fräulein.
Frau Schmidt, I am helping Monsieur Poirot in the investigation of Monsieur Ratchet's death. Will you assist me?
If I can.
Mogę panią prosić o paszport? Przecież wzięliśmy sobie.
May I have your passport?
Yeah, here it is.
You are Hildegard Schmidt, aged 43, living in St. Petersburg?
Where I attend Madame la Princesse, yeah.
Proszę opisać, co robiła pani wczoraj po kolacji.
What can you tell me of your movements last night after dinner?
I moved very little. I read to the princess Bleak House by the English writer Charles Dickens. The sudden stopping of the train interrupted us. Madame la Princesse luckily was not harmed. I returned to reading. I do not read aloud very well, but Her Excellency says that it is all the better. So it sends her better to sleep. When she became sleepy, she told me to go. I returned to the compartment I share with Fräulein Debenham.
Która była godzina?
What time was that?
It was very late. 1:30 or more.
Proszę mi opowiedzieć o Mary Debenham.
Tell me about Mary Debenham.
She is a very agreeable young lady. She was already asleep when I came in after reading to Her Excellency.
What color is Mademoiselle Debenham's dressing gown?
It is a pale purple. Mauve, I believe the English say.
Czy Mademoiselle Debenham opuszczała pokój wczoraj w nocy?
Did Mademoiselle Debenham leave the room at all last night?
Not after I returned. I sleep lightly, Fräulein. You understand? Should Her Excellency require me.
Była pani kiedyś w Ameryce?
Have you ever been to America?
No, never. I should like to go someday.
Czy wie pani, kim naprawdę był Ratchet?
Do you know who this man Ratchet really was?
He was not Ratchet?
His name was Cassetti. He was responsible for the death of a small child named Daisy Armstrong.
My God! I have heard of that. The kidnapping. It was wicked. Wicked! We are not so wicked as that in Germany.
Czy to pani chusteczka, pani Schmidt?
Is this your handkerchief, Frau Schmidt?
No, it is not mine.
It has the letter H, you see.
Ah, but it is a lady's handkerchief, that. A very expensive cambric handkerchief, embroidered by hand. It comes from Paris, I should say.
Did you see anyone as you returned to your compartment?
Only an attendant.
He was sitting at the end of the corridor.
No, Fräulein. He came out of one of the compartments in the middle. 2 or 3 doors from Madame la Princesse.
Czy to był przedział pani Hubbard?
Was it Mrs. Hubbard's compartment?
It may have been.
But I saw him come out. You weren't in the corridor.
I most certainly was. He nearly ran into me, apologized, and hurried off in the direction of the salon car. A bell began ringing, but I do not think he answered it.
Then the bell started ringing?
Yes, Fräulein.
Konduktorem był Michel?
The attendant was Michelle.
Our regular attendant. No, Fräulein.
What? What did he look like?
Small, dark. He had a little mustache. His voice, when he said, "Pardon," was weak and high-pitched. Higher than mine. I'd never seen him before.
That will do for now, Mademoiselle Schmidt.
No, czyli mamy kolejną wskazówkę. Niski mężczyzna z wąsikiem. Jeżeli takowego spotkamy, to będzie głównym podejrzanym. McQueen.
I'll put this into my scrapbook so I can take a closer look at it later.
Wzięliśmy jakieś notatki.
Say, this is mighty nice. What can I do for you?
My name is Antoinette Marceau. I'm assisting Monsieur Poirot with his investigation. You know the name, perhaps?
It does seem familiar, only I always thought it was a dressmaker.
Monsieur, for all our sakes, please do not repeat that in front of Monsieur Poirot. Do you promise me?
I think I just about promised you anything. Oh, darn it, there I go, sounding like Mr. Ratchet. You had enough of him, I expect, at the market in Istanbul. I didn't mean anything by it except, well, except it's the truth. I love your accent. A little bit of British, a little bit of French, a lot of heaven. Darn it, there I go again.
It is not a problem, monsieur, but we must be serious now, don't you agree?
Serious, yes. Yes, of course.
Czy jest pan sekretarzem Monsieur Ratcheta?
You are Monsieur Ratchet's secretary?
Yes, for just over a year now. I met him in Persia. I'd come over from New York to look into an oil concession. I don't suppose you want to hear all about that. Getting oil out of Persia can get pretty difficult these days. Anyway, my friends and I had been let in rather badly over it. Mr. Ratchet was in the same hotel. He just had a row with his secretary, so he offered me the job. He was collecting antiquities, but not knowing any languages, was having kind of a hard time of it. I was pretty down and out, so I jumped at it.
Co może pan powiedzieć o Monsieur Ratchetie?
What can you tell me about Monsieur Ratchet?
The actual truth is, Miss Marceau, it is Miss, isn't it? Wait, don't have to answer. None of my business. The truth is, I don't know anything about him. He never spoke of himself or his life in America.
Mogę pana prosić o paszport?
May I have your passport, please?
Sure. Here you go.
What is your full name, age, and address?
Hector Willard McQueen. I'm 28. You're about what, 24, 25?
Your address, Monsieur McQueen?
That's right, Hector. Always saying the wrong thing. That's me. I live at 58 Warren Street, New York.
Musiał pan sobie wyrobić jakiś pogląd na jego temat, Monsieur McQueen.
You must have formed some theory about him, Monsieur McQueen.
Well, yes, I did. For one thing, I don't believe Ratchet was his real name. I think he left America in order to escape from someone or something. I think he was successful until a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, what happened then?
He began to get letters, threatening letters.
Widział pan te listy z pogróżkami?
Did you see these threatening letters?
Yes, it was part of my job to attend to his correspondence.
Do you still have the letters?
I've still got a couple in my files.
Jak zachował się Monsieur Ratchet, gdy otrzymał pierwszy list?
How did Monsieur Ratchet act when he received the first letter?
It's difficult to say. He passed it off with a laugh in that quiet way of his. But somehow, I felt that there was a good deal going on underneath the quietness.
Czy pan wie, że Monsieur Ratchet prosił Monsieur Poirot o pomoc?
Did you know that Monsieur Ratchet had asked Monsieur Poirot to help him?
No, I had no idea.
Czy lubił pan swojego pracodawcę?
Did you like your employer?
No, I did not.
Why not?
I can't exactly say. He was usually quite pleasant in his manner. I'll tell you the truth. Antoinette, sorry, Miss Marceau, I disliked and distrusted him. He was, I am sure, a cruel and dangerous man.
Czy był pan z nim w dobrych stosunkach?
Were you on good terms with your employer?
This is where I'm supposed to go all goose-fleshy and shifty-eyed, right? Like some thriller? You got nothing on me! And so on? Yeah, sorry, but Ratchet and I were on perfectly good terms.
When did you last see Monsieur Ratchet alive?
Last evening about 10 o'clock, I guess. Masterman fetched me. Mr. Ratchet wanted me to take down some memoranda for him.
On what subject?
Some pottery he'd bought, and a statue we were bringing back to Paris with us. It's in the baggage car.
Monsieur McQueen, you are correct. Ratchet was an alias.
I knew it! Who was he?
He was Cassetti, the man behind several notorious kidnapping cases, including the famous affair of little Daisy Armstrong.
That damned skunk! If I'd known that, I'd have cut off my right hand before I'd write another letter for him. May he burn in hell!
I didn't mean to upset you.
I have reason to be upset. My father was the district attorney who handled the case. I saw Mrs. Armstrong more than once. She was a lovely woman, so gentle and heartbroken. If ever a man deserved what he got, Cassetti's the guy. I'm rejoicing. A man like that wasn't fit to live.
You almost feel you could have murdered him yourself?
I do. Seems I'm kind of incriminating myself here.
Czy może pan opisać, co robił pan tej nocy?
Can you describe your movements last night?
Let's see. I fell into conversation with that Englishman, Colonel Arbuthnot. Then I went to take down some memoranda for letters Mr. Ratchet wanted written, like I told you. When I came out, the Colonel was down the hall waiting while the attendant made up his bed. He came along back to my room here, and we discussed world politics. The government of India, the Wall Street crisis. I don't, as a rule, cotton much to Britishers. They're a stiff-necked lot. But Arbuthnot is all right.
Czy słyszał pan lub widział kogoś na korytarzu podczas waszej rozmowy?
Did you hear or see anyone in the corridor while you were talking?
Let's see. Yes. The attendant passed along once from the direction of the restaurant car. I caught a glimpse of his uniform. Then I do remember some woman in a silk, scarlet something or other. Again, just a glimpse. She was headed the other way, towards the restaurant car.
Did you see her return?
No. Now that you mention it, I don't think I did. But I suppose she must have.
O której godzinie wyszedł od pana pułkownik?
What time was it that the colonel left you?
Pretty late. Getting on for 2 o'clock, I'd say.
Byliście razem, gdy pociąg się zatrzymał?
You were together when the train stopped.
Yeah, shook me up a bit. But the colonel was as cool as ice water. He's been in some tough scrapes, I'd guess. A near train wreck didn't even make him blink.
Co pan robił, gdy pułkownik Arbuthnot się pożegnał?
What happened after Colonel Arbuthnot said goodnight?
I called the attendant to make up my bed, and then hit the sack.
What sack did you hit, and why?
I went to bed. Slept till morning.
Pali pan fajkę, Monsieur McQueen?
Do you smoke a pipe, Monsieur McQueen?
Nope. Don't smoke at all, as a matter of fact. I know they say it's healthy, but I don't believe them.
Czy wieczorem opuszczał pan pociąg?
During the evening, did you leave the train at all?
Only when Arbuthnot and I got out at Belgrade to stretch our legs. When we saw you. But it was bitterly cold, so we hopped back on again.
Which door did you use?
The one closest to here.
Do you remember if the door you used was bolted?
Yes, I seem to remember it was. At least there was a kind of bar that fitted across the handle.
Did you replace the bar when you returned to the train?
You know, I don't think I did. I remember now. I left it unbolted for you. Say, listen, since we know that Ratchet was really that swine Cassetti, there's something you should know.
Yes?
One night, late, after he'd received those threatening letters, I heard him working at my typewriter. He never did that. He always dictated his letters to me. From then on, wherever we were, he insisted on access to the safe. Whatever that document was, it was important enough that he traveled with it wherever we went. If there wasn't a safe available, he had one installed. I know for a fact he had one installed in the security room in the baggage car. I saw it when we were loading his crate.
Do you have the combination?
If he didn't trust me to type it for him, you really think he'd give me the combination?
Thank you most kindly, Monsieur McQueen.
To była dość długa i wyczerpująca rozmowa, ale sympatyczny gościu.
Yes, miss?
Monsieur Masterman?
Yes?
My name is Antoinette Marceau. I'm assisting Monsieur Poirot in his inquiries.
Yes, the attendant has explained that to me. The service is quite good, I must say. I prize good service highly, of course. My compliments.
Thank you. I would like to ask you some questions.
Yes, I expect you would. I shall help in any way I can.
Czy jest pan lokajem Monsieur Ratcheta?
You are the valet of Monsieur Ratchet.
Yes.
Czy może mi pan dać swój paszport?
May I have your passport, please?
Of course. Here you are.
Your full name, age, and address.
Edward Henry Masterman, 51. 21 Friar Street, Clerkenwell.
Kiedy ostatnio widział pan Monsieur Ratcheta?
When did you last see Monsieur Ratchet?
It must have been about 9:35 or 9:40 last night, miss.
W jakich okolicznościach widział pan Monsieur Ratcheta?
Can you tell me what happened when you saw Monsieur Ratchet?
I went into Mr. Ratchet as usual, miss, and attended to his wants.
Co należało do pańskich obowiązków?
What were your duties exactly?
To fold or hang up his clothes, miss. Put his dental plate in water and see that he had everything he needed.
Czy zachowywał się tak jak zwykle?
Was his manner the same as usual?
Well, miss, I think he was upset.
In what way upset?
Over a letter he'd been reading. He asked me if it was I who had put it in his compartment. Of course, I told him I hadn't done any such thing, but he swore at me and found fault with everything I did.
Czy miał zazwyczaj brać coś na sen?
Did your master ever take a sleeping draft?
Always when traveling by train, miss. He said he couldn't sleep otherwise. Even the Express affected him, I am sorry to say.
Did he take it last night?
I poured it into a glass and put it on the table for him, though I didn't actually see him drink it.
Czy często pana rugał?
Was it unusual for him to swear at you?
Oh no, miss. He lost his temper easily. It just depended what had happened to upset him.
Czy wie pan, jakie lekarstwa miał w zwyczaju brać?
Do you know what drug he was in the habit of taking?
I couldn't say I'm sure, miss. There's no name on the bottle. Just sleeping draft and to be taken at bedtime.
O jakiej porze kładł się spać podczas podróży pociągiem?
When was his usual bedtime, when aboard the train?
At midnight, miss, or later. With the avalanche last night, I fancy he wouldn't fall asleep until closer to 1.
Czy dał mu pan zwykłą dawkę lekarstwa na sen?
Did you mix his usual dose of the sleeping draft?
A half dose only, miss, at Mr. Ratchet's request. I can't say the reason.
Co było potem?
What happened next?
I asked him if there was anything else he required. He asked me to send for Mr. McQueen. Then I left him.
Czy Monsieur Ratchet wstawał wcześniej?
Was Monsieur Ratchet an early riser?
It depended, miss, upon his mood. Sometimes he'd get up for breakfast. Sometimes he wouldn't get up till just on lunchtime. I would wait until the attendant came to collect me.
Czy wiedział pan, że miał wrogów?
Did you know that your master had enemies?
Yes, miss. I had heard him discussing some disquieting letters with Mr. McQueen.
Lubi pan swojego pracodawcę, Masterman?
Did you like your employer, Masterman?
I should hardly like to say that, miss. He was a generous employer.
But you didn't like him.
Shall we put it that I don't care very much for Americans, miss?
Czy wie pan o jakichś zatargach między pańskim szefem a McQueenem?
Do you know of any bad blood between your master and Monsieur McQueen?
No, no, miss. Mr. McQueen was a very pleasant gentleman. For an American.
Jak długo był pan u Monsieur Ratcheta?
How long have you been with Monsieur Ratchet?
Just over 9 months, miss. Before that, I was with Sir Henry Tomlinson in Grosvenor Square. I was with him for several years before he left for East Africa.
Był pan kiedyś w Ameryce?
Have you ever been in America?
No, miss.
Pamięta pan sprawę z porwaniem dziecka Armstrongów?
Do you remember the Armstrong kidnapping case?
Well, yes, I remember reading something about it. A little baby girl, wasn't it? Very shocking affair. But what has that...
Your employer, Monsieur Ratchet, was the man behind the kidnapping.
I'm at a loss for words, miss. I can hardly believe it.
Czy pali pan fajkę?
Are you a pipe smoker?
No, miss. I only smoke cigarettes. Gaspers, miss.
Co pan robił po wyjściu od szefa?
What did you do after leaving your master?
I told Mr. McQueen, miss, that the master wanted him. Then I came along here to my compartment and read. I was in bed by 10:30.
Who do you share this room with?
A big Italian fellow.
Does he speak English?
A kind of English, miss. He's been in America. Chicago, I understand. He was in here playing cards with another American, a Mr. Hardman. The game broke up soon after I entered, and Mr. Hardman left.
Do you and the Italian gentleman talk together much?
No, miss. I prefer to read. At present, I'm quite enjoying Love's Captive by a Mrs. Arabella Richardson. At about 10:30, the Italian fellow wanted to go to bed, so the attendant came in and made the beds up.
Did you go to bed then?
I went to bed, but I didn't sleep, miss. I had a toothache.
Przykro mi, bardzo pana bolało?
I am so sorry. Was your toothache painful?
Most painful, miss. I applied some oil of cloves which relieved the pain a little, but I still was not able to get to sleep. I turned the light on over my berth and continued to read, to take my mind off of it, as it were.
W ogóle pan nie spał?
You did not sleep at all?
I finally dropped off about 4 this morning.
A dżentelmen z Włoch spał?
Did the Italian gentleman sleep?
Him? Oh, he snored. I confess I envied Mr. Ratchet his sleeping draft, miss.
Czy pański towarzysz opuszczał w nocy przedział?
Did your companion leave the compartment at all during the night?
No, miss.
A pan wychodził z przedziału?
Did you leave the compartment at all?
No, miss.
Czy słyszał pan coś w nocy?
Did you hear anything during the night?
I don't think so, miss. The train being at a standstill made it all very quiet.
Good day, monsieur. The door is locked.
Drzwi są zamknięte. Wagon salonowy. Pewnie w tym wagonie też będziemy mieli kilka osób do przesłuchania. Ale moi drodzy, zrobimy to w kolejnym odcineczku, ponieważ ten się troszeczkę przeciągnął. Jest długi. A tymczasem dzięki wielkie za uwagę. Trzymajcie się i do usłyszenia. Hej!